Hey Terry,
Hello, hello.
I saw that it looked like the meeting had started, and so I was like,
Hey there.
um, Terry, I know you had a marketing meeting earlier today,
Hmm.
and I would have presented you this had the idea come to me earlier, but it came to me last night in a conversation with Julian, and I locked up my mother as the first person to do this, but trying to come up with an idea of instead of viewing our shows as completely sponsored by so and so, being matching granted, or like matching donor sponsored, and then a donation of $60 or more gets you a free ticket. What are your thoughts?
I'm open to that. I had mentioned not in the meeting that we had, but I'm used to ski passes as well. Instead of paying by show, a season pass,
Yeah.
for Islanders, something different. What we focused on, just so you know, was primarily projects that Marriott outlined a month, 2 months ago, and fundraising initiatives to potentially support that, as well as defining what are the priorities. But
Okay.
I'm all open for
Yeah.
how do
I
you get more people butts in the seats, whatever the term is,
Right.
I think
Mark, what
the
do
and
you
thing
go from there.
I like, the thing that gets me and that I like about that is how do we talk about fundraising and grants and stuff differently? And I'm not quite sure what I heard. I'm not quite sure what I heard was what you were saying, but the thing that grabbed me was the idea instead of, if you tell people, well, this show is sponsored by so and so, it kind of implies, or by this business, it implies, oh, great, it's all taken care of. I'm all done with it. But that idea of this is sponsored in part, and we need your match. So it's not like, oh, give us a ticket, but this is kind of like your match kind of thing. Because it seems like people are responding to that. So that idea that, someone has given us a very generous sponsorship and we need your free will offerings to match this, to continue, as a way of showing these people that their sponsorship is appreciated, as a way of valuing it. I kind of like that idea. So if there's a way of communicating that, I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, well, so I was saying, and I talked about it as weaponizing the radio station.
Yeah,
Was like, no, Julian, you're going to need to go on and talk a lot about the fact that we are, we're trying something a little bit different and trying to get more buy-in from everybody by focusing on instead of people funding a single show, partially funding a bunch of shows, and
yeah.
then your donation, you get at least one free ticket with a donation of so much amount, and then go from there.
Yes, I think something like that, anything that one promotes the sponsors more, and two gets us away from the idea that, hey, somebody else picked up the bill for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But the more that Julian can get out there and talk about, this is a community enterprise. We're all in this. We all pull what we can here. And by the way, if you donate, here's a benefit. You donate this much and you get a free ticket or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, as an
And
incentive, I think that works fine.
and even if we only choose to do it on a couple of shows this season, the first show was my buddy Christopher McBride. Was because he's an expensive show, but of the 43 or 42 people that were there, every single one of those people came up to me and said, "You're bringing them back next year."
Yeah.
Like, and so like, and Julian, that's what caused Julian and I to talk about this. He's like, "I don't know if we can afford it," and I was like, "Well, what if we try this?"
Do we
So
have do we have the names of those 43 people that were there?
I have almost all of their names to memory, but like, and
Because
some of them were the people that you expect,
right,
but the two people that specifically came up to me and were like, "You have to bring them," as in that entire group back, was Judy Baseman and Allison Vernon.
yeah. Because
Like
I think
he had a vocalist too,
yeah,
and like and her the vocalist he bought was amazing, and she's like they were both like, no, this is something that we need to bring back every year.
because I think part of the messaging then becomes going back to those people and saying, well in advance saying, hey, we're thinking about bringing them back. We'd like you, we've got, your donation, whatever you can donate to help make this possible, we'll make it possible to share the show with more people and to help us find sponsors.
Right.
So that it's like getting out ahead of these things instead of waiting for, as we build up a base here, it's the almost like the crowdfunding kind of thing. Here you go, guys.
Yes.
We need you to help us bring this show back. We know you love it. And I think that messaging goes a long way. So and part of that then becomes as a as an expression of our gratitude, we'd like to give you one, if you donate at this level, it gets you one or two tickets. I mean, it's no different than the CD release party. Here we're going to crowd fund the band's new CD release, and if you donate up to this level, you get a free copy of the CD when you come to the release party thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of stuff, the just the messaging, because and this kind of goes to what you were saying about Julian, you know, the constant message not has to be not only here's the show we're doing, but this show is only it's like public radio, public television. This show is made possible by donors like you,
Right.
that it's not heavy-handed, but we got to constantly remind people. Otherwise, at the end of the year, they get a letter that says, by the way, we need money. And they go, well, didn't you charge enough for tickets? Are you guys bad managers? What's wrong with you guys? And that's what the messaging that we suffer from if we're not careful.
And Julian and I also we spent a lot of time chatting after the Island Band concert last night. Julian and I also chatted, and this is directed more towards you, Mark, about the fact that I still feel like we need someone from the mainland as a board member. So, to tap into some of that real financial
Yeah.
stuff that they have
Well,
down there.
I think that's, we've been talking about grants and stuff, and I think that is part of the strategy, that it's not only looking at the fundraising actions, but okay, what are the strategies we need to employ to make sure that they're successful? And so if we are going to get grants from the mainland, well, it helps if they know who we are and what we're doing. So what is our strategy to build awareness? And one of those is if we can get someone from the mainland on the board or involved in some way, that certainly helps our case. And yeah, I'd be all in favor of looking at that in terms of a deliberate element there. And so it's not just getting someone from the mainland, but why do we want someone from the mainland? What does that help get us, and what do we have to do to make that appealing?
Yep.
Hey, I got a question before everyone gets here. Does Tom still control the Zoom account?
I mean, control, no.
Okay,
Does Tom have access and did he set it up and is his credit card paying for it? To my knowledge, still yes.
okay. Because before the marketing fundraiser or the fundraising meeting, Nina was worried about, well, what do we use? And then Mary said, oh, I talked to Tom and he gave me the login or the code. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that should
I
be
mean,
something the treasurer or the secretary or the executive committee
I mean,
control.
so control is, control
The loaded word, I
is
realize.
a loaded, yeah, it's a loaded word. I mean, he absolutely still has access. He changed the password to give me access, and it's saved on my computer, so I have access. I'm the one that sets up most of the meetings. He does set up meetings, especially for the radio station, and like he sends that out to everybody and doesn't always like cancel them when the radio station doesn't actually meet, which is what happened to Mike is he tried to join our meeting and we didn't actually have a meeting that night. So,
Okay.
and Mike asked me about it. He's like, "Was I being punked?" I was like, "No, I mean, like we just
Yeah.
canceled the meeting and nobody canceled the Zoom. Sorry."
Yeah.
So, um, but like, yeah, so that's more of that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, from a process perspective, just good governance, the idea of a board member paying directly for any service that is in theory owned by us is
well,
inappropriate.
I will tell you, Mark, he has more control over our digital presence than any single board member in any good governance organization should have.
Yeah,
So like that's something that I mean that's something to remember here. Like all of these email addresses that are registered are technically, to my knowledge, registered mostly to him. So
really.
like, yeah, so like we that would be something that if we really, you know, hopefully in the future can do a real process of reorganizing
Yeah,
our structure, that a lot of the things that he has quote unquote control or management over is things that an executive director should have
yeah.
and Gene
Well,
can.
and any accounts should be in the name of the organization,
Right.
not in the name of any individual, you
Well, no,
know?
I mean like when I say like so like the TPAC, to my knowledge the TPAC Google account, it's in TPAC's name, but he set everything up and he has all that, like all of the administrative
Yeah.
control over instead
That
of,
that's what I mean. The administrative rights should
yeah,
reside with the board and the executive committee. And if the board delegates that to a staff member or another person,
right.
that's fine. But
And which I think we should, but it should be the executive director,
yeah,
not a board member and lighting person.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
like,
okay. That, yeah, because I was wondering how that worked, like with, why Mary's going,
I'm
oh,
listening.
yeah,
Yeah.
but why Mary is going, oh, I got I got access to the Zoom meeting, she should be able to get that right away.
Well, we have a quorum. Should we just decide and move on?
I'm half tempted to
No,
here.
we should
Make
not, gentlemen.
make a few executive decisions and call it a night, huh?
I'm not about mutinies.
It's not a mutiny, it's just efficiently wielding executive power. That's all. You're thinking about it the wrong way.
When do you come back, Mark?
Probably won't be up the island till, well, I'm gonna be up right after Christmas just for a couple days. And then it'll probably be March during maple syrup that I'll be up again. Then I'll be gone and then come back Memorial Day-ish.
Okay. And Terry, you're not back until Memorial Day, right?
Yeah, probably mid-May. That'd be my target. And it won't be back and forth necessarily. It'll be there for 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of the same with us. We'll get up around Memorial Day, 5, 6 months then, usually right around Columbus Day and or so.
For me, I tell people Halloween-ish.
Yeah.
Right when it
Operative
starts to
word
get
is
cold.
ish.
Well, I have an outdoor shower and a holding tank, so
I
dictates
kind of put some limits on things then.
my year.
Yeah, an outdoor shower in Halloween. Holy smokes, Terry, you're braver than I am.
Well, this past year wasn't too bad, but it was a year ago, 2 years ago, it was 29 degrees. I'm like,
Whoa.
I think it's time to go.
Yeah. That was a pretty easy decision to make about that time, right?
It's not the problem being in the shower. It's when you turn off the hot water. It's like
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Shit starts freezing to your skin.
you're awake. But
Oh.
it's worked thus far. And you're in a heat wave this week, or at least today.
Yeah, I mean, the next couple of days.
34 degrees. I'm looking at it now. It was like 8 a couple days ago. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, West Harbor is almost entirely frozen, so um, you can
Is that where
actually.
you are? Where are you? West
I'm
Harbor.
I'm right on West Harbor, so
It's shallow, so
yep, it's shallow, it's frozen. You can walk out on the ice to some of the deeper parts already. So, and it's supposed to be warm tonight-ish into tomorrow morning, and then it's supposed to get cold again. So it'll be a it'll be a good winter for ice skating, I think.
like our family houses on Detroit Harbor is like, well, take the roll-in dock in. It's like, why? It's already in.
Yeah.
There's no water.
The water's so low, yeah.
Yeah.
So being on Washington Harbor, I don't notice it as much.
And the Bears won nice and good, so
The Bears.
stop Bears. So in general, it's been a pretty good week, other than me being sick.
Well, shoot, our Mike and Peter gonna join us.
I don't
Well,
know.
because the way Nina scheduled the Zoom, Terry, I had to schedule it to start at 6, not at 5:30. So I don't think that they're going to show up until 6.
Yeah,
Um,
give him a couple more minutes here then.
yeah, because I didn't know if I could like overlap with what Nina had scheduled, and I didn't want to like accidentally like cancel you guys' meeting while you were meeting.
So what else is going on the island?
What else is? Well, the town board got caught on a hot mic last month, and so tomorrow's meeting will be really interesting. So, yeah,
Was that reported in the Observer?
it was not in the minutes because they had already moved to closed session, but they had not turned off the mics, so the people that had called in got to hear about 3 minutes worth of discussion that should not have happened in closed session. So that's the big news up here.
Looks like Mike has joined or trying to join.
Yeah.
All right, you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you.
All right,
Yeah,
nice.
we can see
You
you.
got everything.
I actually figured it out. How about that?
Whoa.
Peter's not going to join us because it's too late. He had dinner plans with some friend he meets once a year. But he's told me how he's voting, so I'll share that with you
Okay.
when it's appropriate. All right, so I guess we'll move ahead. Um, how do you want to start?
Call to order.
Call to order. We have 4 people out of 5. We're quorum. We're in order. So anyway, um, we don't have minutes to review or anything like that. We don't,
I
and
mean,
we don't
I
really.
I take minutes, so
I haven't seen them. Has anybody seen them?
Is
they're
there a
always
need?
shared with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a need to review them necessarily.
Anybody discuss them? If not, I'd like to move ahead. Is the first thing I think is the NDA. Have you guys read the whistleblower clause?
I've reviewed it. To me, I see no problem with it. So I'm
Yeah. It's
willing
pretty standard.
to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of this, everything that we agree on, I will make copy and send it to every board member and employee. I'm assuming that's where we're going to go. So the NDA, I think, if there's nothing more to discuss, and let me just get a couple other things out of the way, though I do want to talk about. At the next board meeting, the gymnasium representative, somebody from there wants to be at the meeting and talk about the easement that they need. Uh, um, I haven't seen any drawings. They've just kind of told me what they want. Basically, they want to use our driveway for emergency vehicles like fire and rescue, so they can go down the fence line by the trees at the back parking lot, and they'll have an egress that will go over to a door at the gymnasium. So if they have to take somebody off in an ambulance, they can do without. It'll be easier for them to do it, and that a fire truck could get back there if there was a fire. Um, I
Is there?
don't. Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry, Mike. Keep
I
going.
don't. I told him I don't see a problem with it as long as there's no. But we need to talk about it. We need to see the plan, and I also am concerned about drainage from that building onto our property, and I would want them to address it if it was an issue. Um, so that's all I have.
That you finished up what I was about to ask about, which is the drainage, because that's really the only concern I have with where they're placing in the building.
Yep. I mean, I had Tim Verboten call me a guy named Shay Latham. Is that his
Layman.
name?
Layman.
La-
Yeah.
and then Bruce called me about it too. And I'm just like, okay, I don't, but I think Tim or Shay or both would like to be at the meeting uh, in January because they're moving ahead, even though they're $490,000 away. But,
Yeah.
so that's that news. Uh, I haven't shared with you. Peter shared with me an email from Tom. He's, I don't know. It's just something kind of wacky about. He feels we're underreporting to the IRS how much money we make. That's how
We
Peter.
lose money.
I know, but I don't. I'll have to read it again. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. And Peter's response is, "Thank you for your concern. We're going to let our next CPA deal with it." And basically, what I read into this is he thinks if our endowment, I guess he thinks we underreported our endowment. I don't know our assets. Maybe that's what it was. Okay, I don't know if we did. To the IRS or to whom, I'm not sure, but it's on our statements, our financial statements that we publish um, almost every month. And then from when I got it, he just said if your value of your endowment went up by 100,000, you should report $100,000 in income, which is total nuts. You don't report that. You don't report your losses only until you sell your stock.
Yeah, it's unreal. It's not income. It's unrealized income.
Yeah.
It's just simply unrealized gains.
So I'm not sure, but Peter just said, I'm not concerned about it. I don't think it's not going to affect us in any way. But
No.
we'll
I
give
mean,
it.
I think Peter's response is the right one, that thank
Yeah,
you for bringing this to our attention. We'll pass on your concerns to our CPA and let them deal with it, because the fact is, A, we're tax exempt. B, the amount that we're talking about, the IRS does not care about at all.
I know.
So,
It's and I got a phone call from Betsy because she's looking for an accounting firm too, and I'll get to that. And she says, "Yeah, I got a phone call from Tom. You want to know if I had an endowment in the music in the what am I trying to say here? The thing that they do every summer, the music festival."
oh yeah, yeah.
Because no, I don't. Okay, never mind. Just he really wanted to tell her about it. But anyway, um, so the other thing is that we've got a proposal um, from Gerber Rose or Rose Gerber. I'm not sure the name again. You guys familiar with them? They're in Sister.
No.
Um, uh, we Pat's Pat's been charging us somewhere around $5,000 a year, or thereabouts or less, and then we're paying this accounting firm about $1,500 to do our federal tax report or return and state return and supposedly the forms that were supposed to be turned into that were not turned in completion. So I uh Danny Gillespie is now an associate. She's learning to be an accountant and she wants to be a CPA someday.
Oh,
And um and so she's working from the island. I don't know how often she goes over to they're in Sister Bay, their office. The CPA, and I don't know all the players, but Mary Horton is a CPA. She's one of the principals. I know her. I just want you to know that I know her, and she not as a customer. Her family owned the Bearded Heart in
oh yeah.
um,
Bailey's Hardware, is it,
Lake
or?
Harbor. They sold that a couple of years ago, and but she's been an accountant for quite a while in that firm. Um, and she comes up to the island quite a bit. She stays at Gibson's a lot. She likes to kayak. She went to one of our performances this summer. And I saw her at Red Cup one day, and that was after I had already reached out to her. And so I finally got a bid. It's going to run about 10 grand a year. It's more money, but it's a CPA firm. Um, it's it's could we do better? Maybe, but I don't know anyone that's that close and that credible.
I mean, it's what? $4,000 more a
Yeah,
year,
right.
3,500 more a year.
Yep.
I mean, that seems fairly reasonable if we want the CPA qualifications.
Yeah. And I
And
think Pat has been undercharging us
yeah,
because, you know, I
I
don't know.
think you're right.
Any
I
thought?
mean, to my knowledge, we need to have this sorted out by January 1st. So I
Oh,
think
yeah, we're ready to go if we say yes, you know.
I,
But I
I
don't I don't have any other options right now.
I think it
uh,
makes sense. I mean, the worst case scenario is you end up paying for, you find someone cheaper next year, and so you've got a
Mhm.
couple $1,000s in expenses for 1 year. I mean, this isn't like we're signing on to this forever, so
Correct.
I move to accept the Gerber Rose offer
Okay.
I'll second that.
All
for
right.
2026.
All right. All those in favor, just yeah.
Aye,
Okay. I agree. It passes. And there was one other thing I was going to tell you. Oh, Pat is going to finish the year and do the W-2s for the year.
great.
And then Mary's or Gerber Rose will take over doing the bookkeeping and payroll. The payroll is only once a month, uh, but just making sure everything is in order. And
And our fiscal year though is end of October. So
okay,
just to be
yeah,
Yeah,
mindful of that,
yeah,
I
they'll have to
assume
close out the year then and everything, Gerber Rosewell.
all
Do,
right,
they're gonna send us a letter of engagement that make sure they address the things like filling out those tax forms and the state forms, because I
right,
can imagine other people on the board might go, well, are they gonna do that for us? Since that was the thing that precipitated all this, we'll want to
right.
make sure that,
I have the proposal. I will send it out to the board.
okay,
Um, and I think there's like a $600 fee to move her software data onto their computer. It's a one-time charge, which seems reasonable, I guess.
yeah.
Uh,
It's not entirely reasonable, but it's required.
Yeah.
uh,
That's right. They'll plug in the migration software and let it do its work, and that's it. So, but
Good luck because that software that she's using is still a floppy.
yeah, so it
Yeah.
maybe it is very reasonable considering the outdated technology.
Pat's lovely. She did a great job, but
Yeah,
she has really old software.
yeah.
Um, I have all the files. She wanted them out of her garage. I put them in my car and I drove them down here. Just so you know, something happens to me, they're in my Tesla in my warehouse. And I've got the checkbook. I think I threw it in my car too. I got the checkbook from Matt of checks that originally were Michael Gillespie's. Um, and I think
Finally out of my trunk, which had been in my trunk for 2 years. So
I should probably just shred any unused checks. I don't think I'll
Yeah,
talk to Mary about that before I do that. And then I don't know how we're going to handle the signing checks. Are we going to give them the authority?
I think we should have that discussion at our next board meeting, but I would be in favor of that.
yeah. Just
All right.
as a practical matter, I mean, you almost need
Yeah.
to do something like that.
Yep. Um, and I think I just talked to, I'm not sure, Don Morgan, is that his name?
Yes.
He's now
That's
the
that
of the
that's
music.
the new president of the Music Fest.
Yeah, he called me yesterday and wanted to know more about Rose Gerber and the BS accounting firm and that really is their name, BS accounting in Sturgeon Bay. Uh, so they probably are going to do the same thing. Um, all right, so that's that. And and now do we want to talk about the bylaws and the conduct and conflict of interest? And
Yeah.
I don't have any you guys were kind of exchanging emails today about employees. I'm in, I, I'm in favor of that
I,
until it's
I just I just think that that's not something that should necessarily go into bylaws. Um, I think that that's something that should be going into an employee handbook, and I think that we can make a motion when the board meets in January to create an employee handbook in which one of the things that's stated in the employee handbook is they have to sign this as well. I just bylaws are not normally designed to cover things like this.
I
Okay.
would, just as an sort of an amendment to that idea, Matt, um, I'm with you on that. I think it is an extension, even though I said I'd kind of like to include it, I totally agree that it's really not a bylaw issue. But instead of waiting for an employee handbook, there's no reason why the board can't say immediately though, and as a matter of policy, anyone who attends board meetings also on a regular basis needs to sign these. So that we don't have to wait for a formal employee handbook. We can create employee policies at any time.
I like that idea as a bylaw statement better than saying employees, anyone who regularly, because that opens the floor to a committee member who regularly attends.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
think
Anyone
that's a
who's on,
better way of phrasing it, and
yeah,
that I would be more in favor of adding.
yeah, anyone who's a committee member or a regular attendee at board meetings, and that would automatically then cover employees then.
Um, is there a bylaw change about the being an employee and also being a board member?
Not currently.
I thought that was going to be one of the bylaw changes.
Um,
Mark, I thought we talked about that.
Yeah,
no,
I
we,
did,
we did talk about that, but that was
how
not
can
one
we
of
miss
the
that?
that was
I,
not one of the first three. Like this is when I wrote this stuff up. I'm under a firm belief that we need a detailed change to the bylaws in general, but these were the three things that were most immediate.
yeah,
And could just,
I would add the employee though one right away too. I
Well,
think
that
we
would
need,
require, guys, that would require an additional 10-day notice to the board. And it like that, there's a difference between
oh, yeah,
amending something that is already being proposed to the board and something that has not even been proposed to the board. So
right,
that
right.
would require a full 10-day written notice to the board again ahead of time. And I don't know if your intention, Mike, is to try and have the exec board pass these bylaw changes, but I firmly
well,
believe that this is a
I think,
board.
I don't, okay, sorry, go ahead, finish it.
This is a board decision, not an exec board.
Well, I agree with you, but I just thought
Okay.
it's a good idea to discuss these things and see that we can speak with one voice, that we agree
Yeah,
Okay. I
that
just
we
I
need
just
yeah,
wanted to clarify. I did not
yeah.
know what your intentions were.
I think I dropped the ball and we missed the window then, as you're pointing out, Matt, to include it in this go around for the upcoming board meeting. But
well,
I do believe though that we need to address that.
all right, but couldn't sorry, can't we draw that up and then I will send that out to all board members, in the next week. Um, if I should do it before Christmas or wait till after Christmas, because they haven't seen the final draft.
Oh, well, if we're still within the 10-day window, yeah, I think we should
Yeah,
include it.
the meeting wouldn't be till the middle of the month anyway. I don't
Well,
know.
so if your intention, Mike, is to not call a special board meeting, then yes, we would then we are still in the 10-day window and we could
Well,
send something out.
okay, how do you feel about a special board meeting for this purpose? Because it's like Christmas time. It's just not a great. And now
I
we're gonna be in January. We might as well just wait, in my opinion. But
I feel like bylaw changes in general should be a special board meeting or the only thing on the agenda. That's just how I feel about, because bylaws, this is organizational structure. So like that to me though, that's something that should be devoted simply for the purpose of that meeting. Um
I don't
and
know
it,
anything about
I guess I'm okay with it being part of a regular meeting. To your point, Matt, it should not be something that appears to be rushed through on any board agenda. It should be the rest of the agenda, you should allow plenty of room for discussion. I don't necessarily believe it has to be a special meeting because I think sometimes that can sort of backfire also. It leads to like too high an expectation. But I think the point that I would agree with is that we want to make sure that it's given due consideration with plenty of time for discussion, whether it's a special meeting. Part of it depends on how many changes we're asking for. If it's a huge revamp, yeah, then you might want a special one. If it's a few modifications, I don't know that it's
right. And so like I said, I think for these changes at our January meeting, I guess would be okay, but I do feel very strongly that we need a major overhaul, and that's
yeah.
part of the reason what Mark and I had started the process on.
Yeah, I
So
don't I don't think this precludes the major overhaul,
no,
but I
I
think
agree.
I think it's an important, and I think that's one part of the message we have to get through to the rest of the board. This is an important step that we need to take right now. We need to clarify some things and respond to issues, but as part of the process that, yeah, there will be a more comprehensive review as well.
Okay. So this thing about an employee, I mean, I just want to make sure that we agree that this is a good management, a good business practice for a board not to have employees on the board. Is that
I,
Mark know better
I,
than?
I think it is. I'm just talking from my own experience. The only employees, well, for two reasons. One is the only employee that's ever been on boards that I've served has been me. Um, and that was clearly stated in the bylaws always that the president and CEO was a member of the board. And sometimes, some cases, it was, with limitations and stuff. But the other reason you don't want any other employees is it puts the executive director in an awkward place because if I, in my case, if our operations director or our fundraising VP was a board member, that would have put me in an incredibly awkward position. How can I supervise someone? When are they wearing their board member hat? And when are they wearing their employee hat? So I think and it also gives employees access. It's just confusing. I think that's the simplest way to put it. I think it confuses the issue.
When you were the CEO or president, whatever, did you have you had quite a big, how many employees are we talking about?
150 or so.
Okay. So what about were you the director also? Or,
Yeah, yeah, in just about every case with the large organizations, I was the president CEO and I was also a director, sort of on the board. Um,
okay, but I'm trying to like Julian, is it our,
oh,
what would you call him?
our executive director, whatever. He's like the equivalent, I guess, or the managing director.
But is it
And
inappropriate not to have him on the board? Or is it appropriate or
I
there's,
think if we had someone on the board, it would be him. He would be if we are going to have an employee officially on the board, it would be whatever the top management employee is. So that would be Julian.
yeah, I mean, I don't see any issue leaving things as they are with the assistant director and the director. Um,
And
I think their presence is
yeah,
needed at a meeting.
well, I think, sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but I think we need to make the distinction between attending board meetings and being a board member.
Right.
And it's some of the places, most of the places that I headed up, you know, the top 3 or 4 senior staff would attend board meetings. They didn't have a voice. They sat on the sidelines. The rule was you don't speak unless spoken to. And the board tacitly understood that they really didn't directly interact with the employees either because they wanted to keep the sort of chain of command accurate.
Right.
That's different than them being a member of the board with all the rights and responsibilities of a board member. So it'd be one thing to say Julian is a board member, and still have Kevin and Mary and everyone attend board meetings. That's not a problem because occasionally we would go into executive session or just simply ask the staff to leave during a discussion. And there wasn't any sense that, well, I'm a board member, I'm entitled to be here. So I'd make that distinction between being, and in most of the cases, not all the organizations, but we made it a point of specifically inviting them to every board meeting. So it was understood that you are here at this meeting, not by virtue of your position as an employee, but because you have been specifically invited to this meeting.
Mhm. Okay. Um, Matt, can you read the, proposed, um, changes to I'm sorry, it's a long day today.
Yeah.
But
Bylaw
So,
change?
bylaws changes, yeah.
so adding on to the end of section 3.01, which is powers and duties of directors, would be adding all directors are required to sign the following documents after their elections, but prior to their installation as directors, and are not given the full privileges and responsibilities of directors until said documents are signed and returned to the TPAC organization. An NDA, a conflict of interest waiver, and a statement of board expectations.
Okay. And shouldn't we like designate it should be given to the president, the secretary, who should be handling these documents?
I
The
don't,
T,
again, that's not, in my opinion, that's not necessarily a bylaw issue, and that's definitely not a bylaw issue in that moment, like
okay,
in that spot of the bylaws.
all right. But I'm just asking,
Yeah.
who's going to be responsible?
I think it should be the secretary.
I mean, it's
Here's all of our
secretary,
records.
secretary. There's also a lot of reasons that it should be an executive director. Like, if we were organized more properly, that would be something that an executive director could theoretically do as well.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's a
the,
lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons for both. Theoretically, if you have more long-term like stability in the executive director position, it makes more sense to do it as an executive director because the secretary is not constantly changing. So
the NDA and the conflict of interest require a countersign. So who is that countersign? Is that Mike, president?
I would
That
assume
I
that
think
would
that's the question.
yeah.
So what's the response there?
I would assume that that's the president's position. That is the
Yeah.
countersign.
I think that gives it more weight and gravity.
Okay,
The board expectations is really just a statement. There's
Yeah.
nothing to sign.
It's more of
right.
just an
But those
acknowledgement.
exactly. The other two are countersigned
Shouldn't we have
by
initial it, like they read it? And so we need some,
I
like,
think that's what Terry was saying, that the signature on the expectations is, it's not so much that there's a
there we don't even
consequence.
have a signature line.
Oh,
It's essentially here's what's expected of you. Whereas the conflict of interest and the NDA are signed by a board member slash employee
mm,
and countersigned, you know.
yeah.
That's all I'm saying here
Okay.
is who would countersign? I would think it'd be the president.
Okay. And then they'll be in the hands of the secretary as a record
Yeah.
of the
In
corporation.
our electronic record archive.
Okay.
Yep.
Um,
Our special Google Vault.
the next section is section 3.05, which would be an added section to section 3, which is removal. And in accordance with Wisconsin State Statutes 181.0808, a director can be removed from the corporation at any duly held meeting for any reason when it is deemed to be in the best interest of the corporation. The threshold for board removal is 66% of board members present at the meeting, and directors subject to the potential removal are not allowed to vote on their own removal or it should be and cannot count towards or against the 66% threshold.
So if we have a quorum, let's say we have 11 members right now. And so a quorum would be based on 10 or 11 for this purpose.
So if we had 11 board members like we currently have, it would be 10.
Okay.
And
So
I think Paul brought up a very good point at the previous board meeting is, if a board member, for whatever reason, can attend a meeting, they should be counted one way or the other. So,
okay. So yeah, that's something that I spoke with Peter about that today, and he is in agreement with what you're saying. My counter argument is, what if they don't come to the meetings and then they show up because they want to vote for their, friend, or, maybe they just don't have an informed. I guess what I'm worried about is sometimes you go to meetings and you kind of get a better understanding of what's going on. And if you are not a regular person that comes to the meetings, should you be able to vote?
I think it's hard to
well, if
determine if whether they're regular attenders or not, or what that threshold is. And it
Yeah.
seems like if it's something this serious, we should probably be in enough of a position to inform people of what's at stake, that whether they attend or not
Mhm.
should not be that much of an issue.
and
So
that's part of the board expectations document is,
Yeah,
you know, if
Or
you're on the board, here's what we expect. And part of that expectation is you'll attend committee meetings, you'll attend board meetings, etc.
so
So,
I am also leery of requiring 100% attendance in order for there to be a removal, but it's for not the reasons that Mike just suggested. I think that that's actually counter democratic. What I believe is that the expectation of 100% attendance at meetings is an extremely high bar to reach, and if we are in a situation where we need to remove a board member, having that be hamstringing us to in preventing
mhm.
that action from happening is in my opinion is actually pretty poor governance on our
That
part.
that's a good point, Matt, because all someone has to do is say, I'm not going to attend, and effectively it totally blocks any action by the board.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
so
I understand I understand the hesitancy. I even understand why
yeah,
Paul suggesting this, but you, to hamstring our hands on action for something like this when it would be literally the only thing in our bylaws that would require 100% attendance,
yeah.
I think is actually extremely poor judgment.
I
okay.
mean, I agree with you, Matt, because I mean, you think about it, let's say you hear that we want to get you off the board and you come to me, it's like, Mark, I need your help, just don't show up at the meeting. And there's no way that we could address the issue. And conversely, then if the board wanted to say, well, we're going to throw you off the board, Mark, because you're not attending meetings, all you have to do is stay away. And so two people can effectively block the action of the whole board.
Okay, I missed something because I didn't understand that we have to have the entire board at a meeting in order to do this. I thought we just had to.
That's kind of what Paul is suggesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't say that the entire board has to attend the meeting, but the entire board has to provide either a yay, nay, via a proxy.
Well,
And
that causes a whole additional situation of if we provide an avenue for a proxy, then we have to provide the avenues of how that is organized and correlated. I mean, that's additional steps,
And what happens if someone abstains then? It's like,
yeah,
okay, I'm just going to abstain and
But that's still part of the quorum, isn't it?
no. Abstention does not abstention does an abstention does not count towards quorum. So, for instance, in this situation, if we have, it would be better to say we have 11 board members, we want to remove one, and we have one absence. Okay, so we have nine voting board members,
Yeah.
and then one board member abstains. The 66% is out of 8. It is not out of 9.
Mhm.
So
to Paul's point then, and if one person abstains, would we still count that? Do we have to have 100% of the people voting yes or no? Or
yeah, now with a board of our size, it doesn't really change the numbers. But if we ever had a board of 15 or more, which I think many more than 15, I think is unrealistic. But we could theoretically get to 12 or 15 board members.
easily, yeah.
Like then it does start to affect the numbers. So
Okay, so I have a question. If we have 8 people show up that are not the person being asked to leave, but 8 people, that's 5 and a quarter. Now, how do you?
it's 6. It's 6.
Yeah, you round up, I guess.
You must exceed the threshold.
Because
Okay, that makes sense. You have to
I
exceed the
understood
threshold.
Peter, he wanted to keep it. He thought 60% was more than fair. I just telling you what he said. I do agree with.
I also felt that 60% is more than fair. I'm not going to get in a huff over that extra point, over that extra 6%. We are already providing a deeper threshold than the state law requires.
Yeah.
I think it's the kind of thing too, if you're in this situation, at least I've never seen it where it comes right down to the wire. It's usually pretty clear that this is the will of the board, and it's never right down to that last percentage. It's usually like a 80 or 90% vote kind of thing.
Yeah.
I guess my concern here is this issue of do we require 100% of the board to participate, or how that gets, I mean, that's certainly desirable, but again, if someone chooses not to vote, if they don't even abstain, if they just say, well, I'm absent, I'm not participating, that could gum up the whole works if we said it requires 100% vote. I mean, do we count absence as no vote or an abstention? Because you don't want to let.
I think this is kind of nuts because why can't you attend the meeting? I mean, you could be off island, you could do the Zoom meeting.
Oh yeah, there's no reason why you can't, but
You could be on a phone call and still participate and vote.
But that assumes goodwill and everything. Like I said, if Matt and I were having a drink at the bar and Matt said, everyone's conspiring against me to throw me off the board, and all I say is, well, great, I won't show up at the meeting. I mean, I could, but all it would take is me then saying, nope, I'm not gonna show up, I'm not gonna vote, I'm not
Oh,
gonna
no,
abstain.
I'm arguing that we shouldn't have to have everybody put a vote in.
Oh,
I'm
oh
saying
yeah, no, that's what I'm
no
arguing too.
reason why they can't attend a meeting. It doesn't mean they have to attend the meeting.
Right. Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
They don't show up, they don't vote.
yeah.
Terry,
That-
you look like you have thoughts.
Again, I still believe in what Paul was, I think, getting at is a removal of a board member is a big step. It can't be, hey, we're having a meeting tomorrow, and you have six people show up and four people vote, yeah, okay, remove this board member. Okay, that's two-thirds of the quorum. Well, that's 40% of the total board.
Yeah.
I'm speaking,
Yeah, I think that's a
for what
dysfunction.
Paul, I think, was stating.
Mhm.
I mean, I agree with you, Terry. I mean, you don't want to do it where things are railroaded, but if it's properly, how do we accommodate it so that assuming it's properly noticed and someone can vote via email or something?
Well, and that's
So,
why I was saying there should be a proxy. There's no reason to attend
right.
in person.
Well, I
Uh,
think do our bylaws, Matt, allow for voting via email right now? I can't remember.
It's mute on it, so thus
Oh,
theoretically it does. Um, you know, I would say to you that a removal, something that heavy, is not something that we should be voting over email on. Most of the time, on every board that I've been a part of, where we're ever voting on something via email, it's always either something that is an emergency case or something that was previously discussed at a board meeting and then agreed that we would be voting over email in between board meetings.
Mhm.
That the latter one is the most common form and the most comfortable I am, the form I'm most comfortable with.
do
But
we, Terry, to answer the question that you were raising, do we simply put in there that any vote taken on this issue has to be, 2 weeks notice or 10 days notice or something like that? With, I mean, going back to Paul's concern and everything, because I appreciate that too. I see how the numbers can work.
personally, I would feel more comfortable with that. Um, I think that's what Paul was getting at is
Yeah.
if this is a full board decision, well, the full board should be engaged on it. Yes, an abstention to, you know, what both you and Matt have said would be not a positive vote. It'd be considered a negative vote, but it's a huge decision that
how
Yeah.
I, so what if um because I'm a little leery of the 10-day notice. I'm a little leery of all of those additional kind of requirements to have a meeting. I think of removal of a board member in really worst case scenario, and in worst case scenario, you want to act right away. So any sort of delay kind of thing makes me a little leery. What if we instead to help ease the concern that Terry is voicing, that Paul seemed to suggest, what if we raised the quorum requirement? So
Hmm.
we compromise, instead of a quorum, which is just 50% plus one, what if we said quorum was 80%? And so we're guaranteeing, one, in our case, we're guaranteeing that the executive board can't do the action, you know, and we're stating that we're giving a little bit of leadway for people not being able to attend the meeting, but we are
Well,
putting in also a
again,
little.
sorry to interrupt, but it's not just attend the meeting, it's let your vote be known. It could be yay, nay, or I decide not to vote. We just
Yeah.
have to know.
Well,
Yeah. I mean, I would be okay with oh, I'm sorry.
I would argue to you, Terry, that their lack of attendance is voting. Like
It is.
and it is and it is a vote of abstention. Their lack of attendance is a vote of abstention. If you care enough, then you show up. And so I hear the concern about us as a board of being only 11 people. 6 people qualify as quorum, so theoretically 4 people could vote someone off. I hear that as a concern, but I think any sort of hoops that we jump to allow people to vote in the affirmative or in the negative past being at the meeting, I think is unnecessary.
Instead of a 80% quorum, what if we just kept it consistent and said the quorum is 60% or 66% or whatever, so that we're guaranteeing consistency? I mean, I'd be good myself with yeah, no, I'm sorry, take that back. If we're not going to give 10 days notice, then you don't want email votes.
I think the bylaws say we have to have a minimum of 3 board members. Is that correct? You remember
No,
reading?
no, it's 50% plus one is quorum.
No.
Yeah.
A quorum, excuse me. I believe the bylaws say that you can have between 3 and 18 members.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
you have only 3 people,
Oh.
2 people makes a quorum and 2 people, I think we have to have we should maybe have a minimum of how many people come to the meeting for a vote. And whether that's, 60% or 70% of the vote people show up. So if we have 11 people, if we have right now, we have 11 board members, but we could be 12 easily if we get, you know, so seven, that would be 8 people at 70%.
Well, let me suggest this. If things got to the point where we need to remove someone from the board, that seems to me that it would presume that we're confident that there is a, a a good majority of the board that agree with that position.
Mhm.
And people that agree with that position, for something that serious, they're going to make it they're they're going to make sure that they show up. So if we said, if we have a 60% or 66% vote is required to remove someone, if we just made that the quorum also, if it's that serious an issue, it seems like that 66% are going to go, well, yeah, I'm going to show up. And that kind of solves itself then. I mean, if I can't imagine having a vote if we're not really pretty certain that we have that kind of majority, because why would we want to put the organization through that kind of,
You got it. Yeah, you have to know you're going to win. You don't want
yeah, it's like you don't, walk into the meeting one afternoon and go, you know what, Matt's been on my nerves. I think I'm going to put a motion forward right now to get him off the board. I mean, that's something that you've talked about. It's pretty sure. And anyone that is that certain that someone has to be removed is probably going to be that certain that they show up. So it kind of goes to your point, Matt, that if we had I think 80% is too high a threshold, but if we just had it consistent with the vote that's required, kind of just becomes a self-regulating thing. We need 66% to remove someone. And if we can't get that as the quorum, also we shouldn't probably be having that kind of vote.
All right. I got another thing I was going to ask you about. Right now, the enforcement of the NDA and signing these all documents before you're installed. So we're not going to really enforce this until August. Is that I'm just asking that question.
Hmm.
I mean, the way it's written is for perpetuity's sake. My opinion is that this becomes enforceable right when
Yeah,
when it gets added to the bylaws.
that's my understanding too, that as a requirement of, I
Well,
mean,
the way it's written is that you will not be able to take your office
oh,
until you
Yeah,
do that.
but
You're already a board member. Why do I need to sign this now? I can understand
oh,
maybe when we vote to renew or someone new on the board or renewing the board
right.
each year. And I
uh,
prefer what you're talking about, Matt, but just the way I read it is I don't really have.
Yeah.
in my opinion, that gets taken care of as a separate standalone motion. Like if someone were to if a current board member were to raise a stink at the January meeting, assuming these get adopted, then someone just makes a motion that it that it takes effect right away.
Could,
And
well, could we
per
just put
per
that in?
our August meeting, didn't we agree that we would be electing board members in January anyway?
It was 6 months, so it's January and or February, but that's
Yeah,
only for the exec board, Terry.
yeah,
And the nominating committee is supposed to have, by that point, have an idea of who is leaving the board in August and what we are supposed to be looking for future board members
yeah.
by the Feb by February, technically, in order to fulfill what was the agreed upon discussion in that meeting. However, I do think that, if we weren't doing other things in January, I'd be more in favor of doing it in January rather than February. But, it's already sounding like January is going to be a pretty packed board meeting. So,
To,
Well, we have.
to clarify
Go
what
ahead.
Mike said, my understanding, could we say something with this amendment that the amendment should read that a requirement of board membership is that this be signed and new members do not take office until they have signed it. So that it's
yeah,
clear, so that it's clear that this becomes effective immediately and it's a requirement of everyone's board membership right now, as soon as we approve it
Right.
then.
Well, I think we got to give them a week. Otherwise, we won't
Yeah.
have a quorum.
Well, we could say that the amendment takes effect in 2 weeks or whatever,
10
but
days, yeah, before our next meeting.
yeah, but I
yeah.
think if we just simply word it that a requirement of board membership is that these documents be acknowledged and signed, and for new members, their member, their their term of office does not become effective until they sign these.
That makes sense. I think before the next meeting or 10 days from, if we have a meeting on the 17th, we should have them back in by the 27th or something like that.
And
Um, so are we clear what we're doing with employees? They're signing an NDA.
Again, that is, I strongly feel that should not be in the bylaws, and we should add that as an additional motion after the bylaw amendment is passed, if it's passed.
I agree with Matt. If we pass it as part of the bylaws
Right.
immediately, that we should pass a motion as far as
Oh.
employee policy, that it's
But
required of all employees also.
it'd be a good practice for them to do that.
All three documents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be conflict of interest and the NDA.
Yeah,
The other is really
Unless we do what was discussed, which was adding any regular attendees of board meetings would be required to sign. That I feel comfortable adding to the bylaws as a bylaw change.
well, maybe we do both, Matt. We have it in the that part is in the bylaws and that covers it. But it
Okay.
also allows for in the future, if we have other employees that are not attending board meetings, that we still do the employee policy vote or motion as a separate thing, just to cover other employees that might not be attending board meetings.
or those that may not even be employees, just
Yeah,
volunteers.
yeah,
All right, so I changed it to say all directors and regular attendees of board meetings are required to sign the following documents after their election, but prior to their installation as new directors, and are not given the full privileges and responsibilities of directors until said documents are signed and returned to the TPAC organization.
Can you read that one more time, please?
Yes, all directors and regular attendees of board meetings are required to sign the following documents after their election, but prior to their installation as new directors. And
Good. That was the part I think that was hanging us up before. It was implying that I think as a condition of being a director, you're required to sign this, and all new directors. I would separate it into two. Because the way you had it worded there, at least to me, it made it sound like all directors prior to their
right,
installation.
no, and I added the word new to their
Okay,
installation and as new directors and are not given the full privileges and responsibilities of directors until said documents are signed and returned to the TPAC
okay,
organization.
yeah. I think the word as, not and as new directors, just and new directors. So it's all directors and new directors.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
And then
So
we're just gonna add an addendum, we're gonna pass a motion that we want this signed in 10 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I think we can just say that we can have a motion that these amendments will take place in 10 days or whatever. Yeah.
In my opinion, going back to this removal section, I think that we leave it as is and then we discuss this in January. And I think we get a real. I understand, Mike, your desire for us all to be on the same page, but I feel like this is something that we should discuss because, I mean, I understand, Terry, you're representing Paul's what we feel Paul's viewpoint is, but we don't really I don't really understand for sure what Paul was really suggesting as concerns. So I feel like this is something that's worth discussing in January.
Okay, and then Peter believes that you should be able to vote by proxy. Just so he wanted me to express that.
Yeah.
I understand that desire. I'm just letting you know now that that would involve additional bylaw changes in order to define and understand what proxy is and how that is correlated and who collects that. And we would also need to have a document created already as established of what a proxy is.
I agree. I think I agree with you that if you've got 200 or 300, well, you wouldn't have that many. But if you had shareholders, they vote by proxy a lot.
That is correct. But even that, as a shareholder of an S corporation, when I am not present at our annual meeting and I fill out a proxy, I am not actually voting. Instead, I am giving my voting rights to the member who is in attendance.
Yeah.
I don't actually get a vote unless I'm there.
Yeah. I think what I understand Paul's concern is we want to make sure that for something this serious, everyone has the opportunity to weigh in. I think, to my way of thinking, making sure that everyone has ample opportunity to weigh in is different than saying everyone must weigh in.
Yes. And I am very concerned that what is being represented right now, Terry, in your viewpoint, is the latter, is everyone must weigh in rather than everyone has the opportunity to weigh in. And that's where it gets concerning to me. So I think that this is, like I said, I think we punt this to our regular full board and we discuss it at length there.
Okay, anything else?
There's the removal of officers.
What was that, Reed?
That is under section 4.03. It would also be in addition to the existing sections, which is removal. Any officer can be removed from office for any reason by majority vote at any duly held meeting of the corporation when it is deemed to be in the best interest of the corporation.
I think that needs to parallel, if we're gonna remove a director, removing an officer should have as high a bar as removing a director. So simply saying a majority at any meeting means that, 6 people show up for a meeting and 4 people can effectively remove an officer. So it becomes harder to remove a board member than an officer.
I would argue to you that it should. I feel the exact opposite, Mark. I believe that it should be easier to remove an officer than it is to remove a board member.
Yeah.
But that's just my standpoint.
I think it should require more than just a simple majority of those present.
Well, I'm flexible on the percent. I just fundamentally think that it should be a lower bar because you're not just because you're removed from an officer doesn't mean you're leaving the board.
Yeah.
So,
What scenarios are there for removing an officer?
well, a prime example of this is that what we voted for in August is that we would, our bylaws do not allow for anything other than voting for a full year's term. But it was very clear that the full board wanted to be more closely to what Mark was initially suggesting, which is 6 months and then a reassessment. Theoretically, one of the 5 of us could refuse to uphold to that belief, and that this would be the avenue in which that would be addressed.
I'm a bit uncomfortable with just the simple majority. Um, just having seen how boards function, I don't know. I think it should be a higher, at least the same bar.
What does the present bylaw say?
There is nothing currently in our bylaws, which would thus default to Wisconsin state law, which would be a majority. Just like our removal of a board member, since we don't have anything, in my opinion, it defaults to state law, which is also a majority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have an opinion right now about this.
That's fine. I mean, like I said, I think it should be a lower bar. So
I guess part of the reason for that too is that it's almost, given the size of our organization and the relative lack of sophistication, having a consistency, because otherwise we start getting down in the weeds about why is this different than that? And I think some of the points that you're making, Matt, may be accurate in the abstract, but for us, I think the difference, as we've already discussed, between 66% and a majority is one person. And so I think it's almost easier to say, look, we're applying the same standards across the board here, that it basically takes the same effort and officer, whether you're an officer, whether you're an individual board member, as opposed to trying to get into the finer distinctions like that. So I guess it becomes a little bit of a, calling it 66% versus a majority keeps it consistent and it really becomes a distinction without a difference, you know.
Well,
So that,
sorry to interrupt, Mark, but it actually is more than that. You know, if we're looking at 66%, that's seven people.
the seven of the board, yeah, I see, you're right.
If we're looking at 60%, it's six people. So,
Yeah,
you know, just to cut to the chase here, because I know we're kind of going long,
yeah,
I would still look at, you know, Paul's argument, but I'd be amenable to change it to 60%, but say it requires 60% of the full board, an abstention, yes, is viewed as a nay, but you know, for both director and officer, you know, again, I view this as it's a big decision and it
yeah.
should require more than just a simple majority,
For for
despite what Wisconsin law says.
for clarity's sake, Terry, an abstention does not count as a nay.
Well, it would in the context of, okay, you have 11 board members, you're looking to dispose of one, that leaves us with 10 votes. If we have two people that don't show up, don't vote, call it an abstention, it still requires at 60%, six people to say we'd want to remove that board member. So you could have eight people at the meeting or
Would require
eight
five
people with proxy.
Well,
It's still
the way,
over a majority.
yeah, the way, I was just looking at some notes that I'd made from some other bylaw samples. The Ordway Center here has a kind of elegant way of addressing it. They simply say that to remove an officer or a board member takes an affirmative. In their case, they just have a majority, but the way they word it, it takes an affirmative vote of the majority of the entire board. It doesn't say they have to be present. So basically, what it guarantees is that whatever number you're counting has to be relative to the entire board. So whether someone abstains or doesn't show up at the meeting, the only votes that really count are the ones in the affirmative. And
I
that
like
that's
that.
it's kind of elegant and you don't have to talk about, it's like, do you have, like if we have 11 people on the board, do you have six votes or seven votes? That's all that matters. Why the other ones vote or don't vote, or do they vote no? Who cares,
Well, it's a majority of the board, not a majority of the quorum.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a majority of the board.
Yeah,
I kind of like that.
I like it.
It does
We can,
lower the threshold, and we need to be aware of that.
Well, we could change that number instead of saying the majority, we could say by a 60% majority of the entire. The part that I liked was that they just said of the entire board. They didn't get into
Right.
people being present. It's basically saying, and that kind of answers, um, I think
Paul's
Paul's
objection.
question. If we
Yeah.
give people 10 days, it's like, okay, if you really care about this, you're going to show up
Now,
at the meeting.
now, now, my question to us is, in Mark, if you would send that to me, I will
Yeah,
make the changes. My question is do we, the way that is worded implies that the board member or officer being removed has a vote. Do we want that board member or officer to be removed to have a vote? I
I
don't
don't
have a
think so.
problem with the officer having a vote. I do have a problem with the board member having a vote.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I would agree with that.
okay, so let's just say an affirmative, um, and I'm just wondering about like six
I,
people.
I
vote.
can I can re-wordsmith that. I just want to know whether we want a
No,
board member who is up for removal to have a vote in their own removal.
right. But let's just say there's 8 people at the meeting and there's 2 people yet that haven't expressed their opinion. And if I reach out to them and I want to know what their, where are you gonna, what's your thing? You want to go no, nay, or yay? Um, would that count?
In my opinion, it does not because we do not have a vehicle in our bylaws to deal with a proxy. So that would be useful for discussion purposes only, but it would not count as yay votes towards the entire board.
Okay. All right. I'll just try and
Yeah,
the
I
affirmation.
just sent you guys the language. The thing to keep in mind, and the thing that distorts our conversation is the small size of the board, because the organizations that I'm referencing all have boards that are 30, 40, in some cases 50 people. So when you talk about a majority of the board, it's a big effort to get 25 people to throw someone off the Dallas Performing Arts Center board, you know. So that's why I think just having ours with 60% makes sense.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. I will make those changes if that's what we feel, and then I will send them to everybody.
All right. And
sounds
then
good.
mean all the board members or the exec board?
Well, I understand. I feel that that it should be coming from me, Mike, as far as to the board, but I will
Yeah.
send it to the exec board first.
Yeah, I think we need to have one last chance to weigh in on it.
Yeah.
Got
Okay.
it. Mark and Matt, I agree with your sentiment about you being the guy to send it out. But I just want to make sure that
No, yeah. I'll send it to the five of us first, and then
if the
once.
NDA, the bylaw changes, the conflict of interest, the code of conduct, that all should come from you.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, guys,
Thanks.
adjourn.
Adjourn.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thanks.
All right. Goodbye, Mike.